Okay, let's talk about it. The Last of Us Season 2 was a stinker. It was bad. Quite frankly, I made 4 videos at the end of 4 episodes. Even with one of them, almost released it, edited it, you know, recorded it, wrote a script for it. And I stopped it and said, you know what? Let me give it another chance. All right, maybe next week it'll get better. Okay, maybe next week the characters will go into themselves. Maybe next week the story won't feel so rushed and they'll slow it down, go into depth into some side characters and kind of let the story breathe a little bit. No, didn't happen. We got such a rushed, poorly written, badly casted season of this show, and it is going to be really hard to redeem itself because it was hard to watch. Okay, and this is coming from somebody that loves this IP. You see this game right here? Right, this game is, quite frankly, my favorite game of all time. Right, as far as story-based games go, this is second to none. You know, maybe its predecessor, Last of Us Part 2, could stand toe-to-toe with it. In fact, it does, okay? But, you know, you have video games like Uncharted and Ghost of Tsushima and God of War and Red Dead Redemption 2, story-based games that are just riveting. But for me, this is beautiful in so many ways. It evoked so much emotion for me. It got me so much invested in Ellie and Jesse and Dina and Tommy and Abby and Lev and every single one of these characters, Owen and Mel, and you name it. It made you feel for these characters. And it is a tragedy at the end of the day, which is depressing, you know, and I can understand why a lot of people wouldn't like it, especially with Joel getting killed off so soon. But some of us like tragedies. And this takes the cake. And I will never forget the first time that I completed this game and we go through that last scene where Ellie walks into the empty house and we feel just a overwhelming sense of emptiness, for lack of better terms. And it hurt. It hurt and it moved you and it made you realize that this game is an art form. And I appreciate that so much, especially as an artist myself, seeing that this medium in video games that used to be shoot 'em up, Doom, silly games like Mario, and games that seem childish or made for children, can now break through the threshold into serious adult art. And this did it. And to see a piss poor performance by Neil Druckmann and Craig Mazin and the writers over at HBO, acting that really felt lackluster and immature, a plot that seemed rushed, I'm like taken back at how you can do this to this freaking series. Now granted, people were gonna be pissed off about Joel. Okay, we all saw that coming. We knew that for show-only watchers or for players of the game wishing that they would go a different route, when that happened, you knew that it was going to be pandemonium. Reddit, Facebook, Twitter, they would all go out there with their pitchforks and their torches, complaining about how much they hated it, but we all saw that coming. That wasn't going to be the thing that dragged this down. What really dragged this down were 2 things. For the love of God, why do they have to only do 7 episodes in a season? We're talking HBO here. We're not talking like FX or freaking, you know, Pix. Is Pix even a network? You know what I mean? This is like the gold standard for television series. Okay, you have things like Netflix and Hulu, but then you got HBO. This is the same company that gave us The Sopranos and Game of Thrones and The Wire and Boardwalk Empire and a plethora of other shows. You can just go down the catalog on Max's app and just close your eyes, pick a series, and you'll be, for the most part, flabbergasted at how good it is. Okay, and when I saw that they picked up The Last of Us, I was really excited because for season 1, the majority of us, universally speaking, liked it. Okay, Bella did a decent job. Say what you want about the casting, but did a decent job as younger Ellie. It didn't feel like it was that fast-paced. It had scenes where they did homages to small parts and attention to detail from the video game that you really, you gave a thumbs up to it and said, that's great. I'm glad that they did that. Like with Ish in the sewers. Season 1 felt like a well-done product. Okay, Pedro Pascal might have not been the best choice to play Joel, but when they gave it to him, my God, that guy can act, and he killed it. Okay. Other characters like the actor that played Tommy, the actress that played Maria, the actor that played Sarah. Okay, they were really good. Okay, and we all loved it. Why then, when you get to a part of a game that is broken up into the introduction and days 1, 2, 3 with Ellie, and days 1, 2, 3 with Abby, and the conclusion? Okay. If that's how they were going to split this up, why only give us 7 episodes and completely just breeze through it? There was so much content that they left out. Where was the scene where Joel and Ellie in the flashback get attacked by the bloater? Okay, and she brings up the fact that she's now doubting Joel for the first time. Seriously doubting him. Okay, that's a pivotal part in part 2. When talking about the transformation, and I get it, they tried to do that in the scene where the birthdays and how each birthday moving forward got progressively worse. Right, but it didn't have the impact as much as the game did with the flashbacks. Where was the flashback where Ellie visits the hospital and finally comes to the conclusion? They mix that in with the porch scene. Sorry, but ugh. Ugh, brother, ugh. No thank you. Right? You had Hillcrest completely taken out of the game. Now I get it. You don't want it to be a shoot 'em up, over the top action flick. But you gave us episode 2 with a gigantic war of the infected, which was awesome. Okay, you got to see Tommy's chops as a fighter and a leader in the neighborhood. You got to see Jackson's defenses. You got to see what Maria's influence on the town was. You got to see where the women and children were protected. You got to see how dangerous the infected were and how they act. It was cinematic, it was action-packed, and it was freaking awesome. So why leave out the important scenes? They kind of like try to intertwine it with, other scenes in the game where it just seems like if they would have just gave us 2 other episodes, they could have done it the right way and it'd be more impactful. For instance, when Ellie finds Nora, okay, there's a scene where she literally has to sneak through the hospital, kill a couple of guards, and she's in the vents tracking down Nora. She's like deliberately going there, and in the game she like stumbles upon it in the same scene where they meet the Seraphites and get into a shootout with the Seraphites. No, just follow the script. I mean, what made us love video game to film / TV adaptations a couple years ago when we had The Last of Us and Fallout is that they stuck to the source material. Why are they abandoning that all of a sudden? Why are they now making it seem like they just want to get this over with and get to Abby? Now, as an Abby fan, I'm all for that. Team Abby all the way. All right, come on, we're accepting applications. Join the team, baby. And you know what? Honestly, Caitlin Dever, it was a tremendous Abby. Okay, she was more realistic looking. I'm sorry, I'm freaking saying it. She was more realistic looking. She was freaking rage-filled, something that Ellie wasn't. right? And you're supposed to have this, comparison between the two characters where they're just like obsessed and filled with just nothing but revenge. And you got that with Abby. Where was it with Ellie? Ellie seemed like she didn't want to be in Seattle at times. Right? Abby was on a mission, okay? And they did a great job with the scene with the infected and her getting saved by Joel, and then the scene where she finally tortures Joel. I thought that was great. I love that she hits him in the kneecap, the freaking shotgun blasted kneecap, to like slow torture him, because in the game, Abby, who has arms the size of fucking The Rock, swings a 9-iron in Joel's temple, which I don't care if you're playing T-ball or you're freaking Pete Alonso. If you swing a freaking 9-iron at someone's temple, you're going to freaking kill them, and that's the end of it. So I love that they just like went for the slow torture method after they tourniquet Joel's leg, and then eventually stab him to kill him. A lot more realistic, okay? I love that she had like a little monologue. There are things like the Jackson battle and Abby where you go, they did this right, why couldn't they do the rest of it right? And we're gonna get into the last thing now. You know what I'm gonna say, okay? Critical did a video on this, Moist Critical that is, and Critical Drinker did a video on this. It's pretty obvious now that Ellie should have been recast. Bella is not a good older Ellie. I'm sorry. I'm sure she has better acting chops with other things, okay? And she did a pretty dang good job as younger Ellie. But as older Ellie, she looks nothing like the character. She still acts like she's freaking 14 years old. She is a lot more snarky and bitchy and immature at times. She does not have the revenge obsession like we talked about earlier that Ellie in the game has. She is not as physically capable as Ellie is. Ellie in the game is a lot more agile and like slippery and very, very, very smart, but they decided to make Ellie in the show dumb for some reason. What? This is a girl that figures out like how to maneuver a pack of WLF that are infiltrating a building that she's in, and she has to figure out, and you too as a player need to figure out, I'm going to plant a mine here, I'm going to go around back, and I'm going to, shoot this guy in the head with a silencer, and then I'm going to take my bow and arrow out and take these two people out, and we're going to go and try to make it through that door and lock the door and put something in. Like, in this game, they made the brains of Dina. And by the way, Isabella Marced played a fantastic Dina, okay? But it didn't work out, okay? And they are going to regret that for as long as this show stays on television. Now, granted, with season 3 being, it looks like it's going to emphasize Abby's story, which I loved, okay? I think Abby's story was fantastic. And Caitlin Dever is as we talked about, a great choice for Abby. We're gonna get a cast of characters like Yara and Lev and Owen and Mel and Isaac and a bunch of people that are going to be much more interesting. So that might save the season. But this, season 2, was an absolute flop. And I am pissed off about it. I mean, not that much, but I had to say something. I had to say something about it because it's my favorite IP of all time, and they completely just dropped the ball. I mean, how many of you were show only fans, right? People that didn't play the game. How many of you were seriously that upset when Jesse died? Oh wait, no, not really. Yeah, because they didn't really flesh out his freaking character. All they did was like, hey, this guy's a father now, and he wants to get us out of Seattle alive. Okay, but how did him and Ellie's relationship look like? How did him and Dina leave off? What's his motivations? What's his role in the community? Like, they did a little bit with that, but like, in the game, when you go through like this entire section with Jesse, and you have this dialogue with him back and forth, where like, they're talking about how impressed Joel was with Jesse, and Jesse looked up to him as like a figure that he could mold himself after, especially when they talk about patrols and leadership, and you really get to feel for the character. So when Jesse dies in the game, your jaw drops down to the freaking floor. And you go, holy shit. In the show, it's like, oh, he died? Alright. You know, like... Well, anyway, listen. I gotta give it a ranking. And I'm gonna be generous here. Generous. I'm gonna give it a 3.5 out of 10. I could have gave it a freaking 0 if I wanted to, but there were certain things like Tommy and the Battle of Jackson and Abby and the backstories of people like Isaac and the WLF that I thought were really well done. But, you know, certain things like stalkers all of a sudden being like a new type of infected, like people didn't know that freaking stalkers existed. They're literally the second phase in becoming a clicker and a bloater. Okay, it's runner, stalker, clicker, bloater. It has always been that way, and they were like, oh, you scared the townspeople, Ellie, by talking about this new type of infected. What? What? Like, how was that thrown in by the writers? Okay? Lazy writing, bad casting. Well, let me take a step back. Lazy writing, bad casting choice, having Bella return as Ellie, and rushed content that was cut. Those reasons are why this is a 3.5, ironically, a 3.5 out of 10, and an absolute disappointment. They definitely need to step it up in season 3, which I wholeheartedly think that they will, but fingers crossed. Alright guys, let me get out of here. I got a couple things to do, and I will see you next time. Alright, let me know what you think thought about season 2, by the way. Leave it down in the comment section. Like, share, subscribe, do all that crap. I gotta get out of here. Peace out, guys. Later.